Hey guys, what's going on? It's Matty Collins. Welcome back to another video. And in today's video, I'm super excited to have you guys here because we're going to be going over business tips and tricks. We're going to be talking about gear tips and tricks on how to make that dollar, how to make that skrill, how to make that money with product photography. But first, let's roll that intro. All right, so more and more businesses are struggling to find high quality content to post on their socials and websites and things like that, and that's where we come in. They're willing to spend money, but they need to know that it's the right person for the job. So how do we make it that you are the one chosen to solve the creative needs of these businesses? Well, in today's video, we're gonna be talking about gear, we're gonna be talking about building confidence and things like this, so let's dive right in. Number one, super important that you build confidence. This for me took a really long time, and I think that's very natural. You don't want to start charging when you're not comfortable yourself, even asking for money or pitching to clients and things like that. You're probably gonna start small, and only you are going to be able to know when it's time to actually start charging. Like, when do I have enough confidence? So you'll start small within your network, likely, and a really tough part is asking friends to support you in your new business endeavor. Don't think of it like you're asking money from a friend. Think of it more like, hey, I'm able to solve a problem for my friend, and in return, they're gonna help support my business, and that's the best way to think of it to start. The last thing that I'll say is when you're practicing this product photography before you're even getting paid for it, I think it's super important that you try and think of a niche that you'll be in. So if you really like athletic gear or apparel, do your sample images and make it align with what you actually want to get into in shooting for money. This is the one that people worry about too much, but gear needed. So you can start with something as simple as an iPhone and a light. You can move on from that to the digital SLR world, the mirrorless world, and start really thinking about what lenses are really good for product photography. Typically a macro lens that could focus really close to a subject is going to be your best friend. Think about focal lengths that you'll use, maybe a 35 or 50 millimeter. Too wide, like a 16 mil or 20, is probably not your best friend with product photography. The gear that you use does not need to be expensive, so get that out of your head. You can get some amazing results, and I recently just watched a B&H video with how to shoot product photography at home, and they simply showed a picture frame that was cut out, and they used paper towel and taped it, and that diffused a desk lamp light that they already had. So really, don't let this be a barrier on why you're not going to be taking that next step in your photography. You can start with your iPhone, you can start with household lights and things like that, and you can progress from there. Before I jump into my next tip, it'd be super helpful to me and my channel if you guys could just boop that like button, as it goes a really long way in getting my channel noticed. Number 3 is super important, and this is camera settings. So if you're using a digital SLR or mirrorless camera, that's great. If you're using an iPhone, there are many apps that allow you to change these manual settings in your camera or on your phone in order to get the best results for product photography. Really quick, let's talk about f-stop or aperture. If you're shooting at too low of an aperture, like 1.4 or 1.8, something like this, you might not be able to get the whole product in focus. And though it is really nice to get a nice dreamy background with a low aperture, you want to make sure that the emphasis of the photo, the focus of the photo, is on the product itself. So you might have to bump up that aperture to make sure that you are getting the whole product in focus. With using a higher f-stop or aperture, you're going to find that you're going to need more light. So you're going to have to bring in supplementary lights for this, or just use 2 instead of 1. If you are shooting indoors, which you most likely will be with products, it's really important that you watch your ISO. So ideally your ISO should be at 100, but you're gonna struggle with light. The camera won't let in enough light if your ISO is at 100. So you're gonna have to bump that up, but be super careful with noise and grain in your image if you're shooting at an ISO of 1600, 3200, or even above. We want the sharpest, highest quality images. That's why we keep our ISO low. Lastly is shutter speed. So you can get a lot of this light back into the camera sensor if you're shooting at a lower shutter speed, and that's really good. But be careful, because if you're under 50 and you're shooting handheld, you're gonna introduce motion into your frame. So if you're shooting a person, like a model with a product, you're gonna run into troubles there. You don't wanna be at a low shutter speed. But if you set up a tripod and you shoot at a low shutter speed, that's totally okay if your object is not moving. Next up, let's talk a little bit from the business standpoint. What does your client want from this shoot? So how many photos do they want? Do they have sample images that they can send over? So for you, you have peace of mind being like, oh, this is gonna be super easy. I can do a little bit of research, but I have the confidence to know that I can deliver. The client I was shooting for in this video, for this Christmas shoot, all they needed was 8 to 10 high quality images, and that for me was super easy to deliver in the given time frame. I quoted the job as a whole. I wish I would have done it hourly, so keep that in mind when going forward, because the shoot went a little bit overtime with all the changes to wardrobe and setting up new scenes and things like this. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was that relationship with the client. Make sure that they're willing to help. They're probably super excited to get their product photos done. So in my case, the client had all of the different scenes set up. They knew the wardrobe that they were going to be using. They knew the backdrops, like one was the Christmas tree, one was like the gingerbread table and things like that, and one was the couch. So I didn't have to think about that at all at the shoot. I just had to think, okay, you wanted these 8 to 10 sample images that you sent over. Let's now do a checklist and knock off all those so that I know my job is done here. A quick little tip I'll say at the end is set boundaries with your client. So if there's a specific time frame that you need to be there for, that's super important. And also, if the client wants more images from that 8 to 10 original quoted, like in my case, make sure that they know that there is a cost per image that they want, or you could simply offer the full gallery for X amount of dollars. Okay guys, that about wraps up the video for today. Thank you so much for stopping by the channel. I hope you got some value from it, and I look forward to hearing from you guys in the comments section about your first paid product shoot. I know it's really hard to get out of this like zone of I'm not good enough and things like that. I struggled with it. I went through this for a really long time, but finally, once you're out of that zone, it gets a whole lot easier to pitch to clients or even help out friends, companies, and things like that. So thank you so much for stopping by, like I said, and if you made it this far in the video, you are a real one. Matty out.